Hello there and welcome along. Now I know it's only mid-November, but my inbox and comment sections are already filling up with people itchy to get out into the garden and crack on with what they class to be winter tasks when it's still only autumn. Please leave your pruning of all of your roses and your herbaceous perennials for several weeks just yet. I never prune any of my herbaceous perennials down until at least the end of January, which rolls on quite nicely to weeding the borders before I then move on to actually pruning the roses in February and March before I then mulch my borders off for the rest of the season. So please do allow the season to continue to change and allow the garden to take some weather before you even start thinking about pruning and cutting things back. It's really important that the garden gets this period of quiet and rest over the coming weeks and months. That said, I'm always asked repeatedly, Ben, which secateurs are best? I'm looking at treating myself for Christmas, or I'm looking at buying them for a friend. Which particular brand do you prefer and why? And for me, it has always been Falco. I have never ever really used anything else, and when I have, I've been thoroughly disappointed in them. I've been using Falcos for well over 30 years now. My particular size is the Falco number 8. I have particularly large and broad hands, so these fit in my hands particularly nicely. And as a professional gardener who uses these things all of the time, they almost become an extension of your hands, and I feel almost undressed without them. So they're either in my hands or they're holstered to the back of my belt at all times. I would advise you wherever possible to go to a garden centre, a trade show, a garden exhibit, some one of these things that you can actually get up close and personal. And even if you buy these things in a garden centre or in a DIY store, feel free to unpackage them, take them out of the packet and feel how they handle in your actual hands. How are they weighted? How do they feel? Are they comfortable for repetitive use? These are also available for left-handed gardeners as well, and with rotating handles to ease the strain on your wrist as well. So these are really good brand. They come with a little key which enables you to take your secateurs apart, which I don't do on a massive scale. If I want these to be reconditioned, I actually send these back to Falco. They actually recondition them and send them back to me. It's very much like owning a barber coat. You can send them off and they'll come back all freshly dipped with their handles all done, the blades taken apart and everything done. But today's tutorial is a little bit about how you can actually start preparing your secateurs, your pruners and your working equipment ready for the season ahead. These things need to be kept really sharp, and more importantly, they need to be kept clean. So I like to keep a rag in my pocket when I'm working on roses intently, soaked in a little bit of disinfectant. My preferred brand is Zoflora. You can also use something like Dettol, but you want something that will actually cleanse and clear the pathogens and fungal spores of things that you don't want to be carrying from plant to plant. I also always, because I'm a gentleman, always have a hanky in my pocket, which is really good for just wiping clean the blades and wiping off of any debris or grit or sand, because let's face it, these get used for all sorts of things they might not necessarily be actually built for. So there's always a hanky in my pocket just to clean them off and keep the mechanisms clean. You're going to need some WD-40. Obviously other brands are available, but some sort of spray on lubrication is really important, not only for regular maintenance and cleaning and sharpening, but also for making sure the parts are lubricated and the water doesn't get into them and they don't go rusty. Now, full disclosure, I've left a pair of these out for months and months on end in the garden before. Lost them, forgot about them, picked them up with a lawnmower. Not a very good thing to do either, but I then completely covered them in WD-40 and cleaned them, and they were absolutely good and new. They've been outside for months on end, so do make sure that you keep some of this to hand. You will also need something to sharpen your secateurs with regularly. For me personally, it's an old diamond block. I inherited this. I didn't inherit it from my dad, still about very luckily, but he inherited this from his dad, and I now have it as well. Have several of these. This is a board covered in small amounts of diamond, and you use this to actually sharpen them. You can buy lots of different kits, not only from Falco but other brands as well, that will enable you to sharpen your secateurs, but it's something you do need to do regularly. The sharper these are, the easier your job will be, the less strain on your hands and wrists will be, and the cleaner your cuts will be. Secateurs are available in two major different types. You have Anvil secateurs, which bring the blade together down onto a block. These produce a fairly decent cut, but to be honest with you, the bypass secateur, which these are much better. You can see this is the Anvil here, and the blade actually bypasses ever so slightly, goes past. I'll turn them around so you can see. They actually go past the Anvil, giving you a much cleaner, sharper cut. For detailed and precision work, these are a much better idea than an Anvil type, which I always find leaves a little bit of a snag and sometimes can rip the bark down onto the growth that you actually want to keep. So two different types of secateurs. One is the Anvil and one is the bypass, which is the ones I prefer. Right, I am going to turn you round and I'm going to show you what I do with these. Now, we've sorted out our camera angles. All I'm going to do to begin with is actually take the spring out of the secateur itself. Using the rag that's covered in my Dettol and my Zoflora, I'm simply going to give that a thoroughly good clean. You'll see all of this dirt and grime and lubricant, the WD-40, that's actually sort of encrusted on there. If you gets particularly bad, you can actually put this in to soak overnight in some disinfectant just to give it a thoroughly good clean. But just give that a bit of a wipe off. You can see that's nice and clean now. Then I'm going to take my hanky. You can obviously use a rag, whatever you like. Just give that a good wipe off and make sure that's clean and now dry. And then we're going to use our WD-40 just to spray that off and put that to one side. That is now all but done. With my secateurs themselves, I say I can actually completely take these apart using the little key that Falco supply. I say I carry this around on my keys, but this is not something I need to do today. I'm just going to wipe the blades with the disinfectant, get those clean of any pathogens, any bacteria, any spores that might be in there. I can give them a thoroughly good wipe down and just make sure that all of the gunk, the sap, the debris that builds up on them is clean. Obviously be careful because these are still relatively sharp. You don't want to be cutting yourself with these, but give them a thoroughly good wipe clean in all the nooks and crannies and get those nice and clean. And then I'm going to take my dry rag and give them a really good buff off. Once again, be careful of that blade. That blade, even in its dull state after several days of use, is still going to be sharp. Will still give you a nasty nip if you're not careful. So give them a thoroughly good clean, and then they're going to get a really good spray, a good squirt of WD-40 all over. Get that blade wet, get the bypass or the Anvil wet, and then I'm going to be using my diamond block. And to begin with, I'm going to be using it on the flat. So you can see my secateurs there. I've put them into my less dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so the secateurs are in my left hand. I've got them flat, and I'm simply, with the diamond block, I'm going to give them a thoroughly good rub, keeping that block nice and flat at this stage because the angle is actually on the other side of the blade. You'll find at this stage you need to do this about 50 or 60 times, so keep working and you'll find that this actual diamond block, or whatever you use, you can use a pumice stone or one of the other kits that are available from the other manufacturers, you can actually really start to bring up the colour of the blade, and you'll start to expose the stainless steel that you may not have seen for quite some time. So give that a thoroughly good rub. You can see that's nice and clean now, and once again I'm going to, with my dry rag, just going to give that a wipe off. That's much better. That's removed an awful lot of the sap buildup that's on that side of the blade. Right, I'm going to flip them over and I'm going to work on the underside now. I now need to pick up the angle of the blade. If I turn them around, I won't be able to work like this, but I need to pick up the angle of the blade. So you can see I've got ever so slightly there angle on that, and I'm then going to, with my thumb controlling the blade and with, I say, the stone in my dominant hand, I'm going to give them a thoroughly good rub, picking up that nice sharp angle so I can start to put a really nice sharp blade on them. Don't forget the very tip. That's the bit that normally takes the most punishment, so give the tip a really good pumice as well, keeping that angle. You might need to go in there and give them just a little bit spray of WD-40, keep that lubricated as you work. And again, once again, this block not only sharpening but removing a lot of that build-up of sap, dirt and debris from the blade as well. And when these are finished, these are going to make that lovely sort of swishing noise that you want to actually hear when you actually cutting things. Right, let's have a look at what we've got. Let's give them again another wipe off. You can see I haven't applied quite enough pressure to the blade, the very tip end, so I'm going to roll those over. I'm going to do that again. When I'm pruning intently, I do these an awful lot. You'll find me doing this regularly, sometimes even once a day when I'm working, because I do so much pruning. But these are, say, used for lots and lots of different things in the garden they're not necessarily designed for. I'm going to go back to the top edge again and just give that another clean through. That just sharpens the edge of the blade below that I've just worked on. And now on to the Anvil, this particular part here. Obviously this is a bypass secateur, but don't forget this, you also need to keep this edge sharp as well. So once again, give it a good spray of WD-40. Keeping your stone or your pumice nice and level, just take the edge off the top of that. It only takes several minutes, it doesn't take particularly long. Again, that will clean off all of the sap and the debris and dirt that may have built up on the blades over the last couple of uses. And then taking your block, you can then run it up the inside of the anvil. Make sure the blades are well opened, and you can just run that up the inside just to clean off any excess or dirt that may have built up there too. That's not too bad. And one little go over the other stages as well. Flip them over and just put that edge back on that lower blade as well. And for now, we are all but done. I'm going to give these a thoroughly good wipe over because there's WD-40 all over them. I know we want them lubricated, but we don't really necessarily want that on the handles. I'm going to give them a thoroughly good wipe down. I'm then going to pop the spring back in, and we'll bring them up to the camera for that swish test so we can actually hear whether they're nice and sharp. Absolutely perfect. That's exactly as you want them to sound. You want them nice and clean, so you want that blade nice and straight. I'll bring those in, you can see nice and straight. There's no gap there at the end. Bypassing nice and clean. Absolutely perfect. Now obviously if you incur any problems with these and you need to send them back, you can send them directly back to Falco, who will put them right for you. So if you've bent the blade, you can buy new blades for those, you can buy new springs. I've lost those in the past. But I hope you found that little tutorial helpful. For me, these are going to be done regularly from over the weeks and months to come. There's massive amounts of pruning to do, but keeping these clean, keeping these sanitary is really important moving forward for the next couple of weeks and months. I will see you all again very soon. Take care now.